If you've ever wondered whether it's really possible to leave academia and make a living as a freelance editor, you need to hear this week's episode. My guest, Meg Toth, was a tenured professor who walked away from her academic career, enrolled in my program, becoming an academic editor, and built a successful editing business in just a few months. In this episode, Meg shares the moment she knew she had to leave academia, how she found paying editing clients without social media, the biggest mistakes new editors make and how to avoid them, why editing is more than just fixing grammar, and how to make yourself indispensable so the clients keep coming back. Today, Meg is completely booked out and she runs a thriving editing business. If you're thinking about becoming an academic editor or want to grow your existing business, you won't want to miss this one. Now, here's my interview with Meg. Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor, the podcast. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette. In 2019, I was a political science professor who was fed up with the stress and hostility of academia, not to mention the low pay. I left my tenure-track job and went from barely surviving to thriving as a freelance academic editor. Today, I own Acadia Editing Services, an editing and coaching business that brings in 6 figures a year. In this podcast, I'll discuss the challenges of academia, what academic editing involves, and what life as a freelancer looks like. If you're willing to jump outside your comfort zone, it is possible to find joy, true flexibility, and a profitable and rewarding career as an academic editor. Thanks for listening. Meg, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So, full disclosure, you enrolled in my program, Becoming an Academic Editor. I think you were in was it the September cohort, I think, that started last year? Yeah, so that was the second cohort. And you are well on your way to a thriving editing business. So I'm really looking forward to having you share your story today of how you got started and how you've become so successful. So why don't we start at the beginning? What did you do as an academic and why did you end up leaving?
Okay, this is the longest story. So I'm going to try to give the short version of it. So I was a tenured full professor. I taught for 16 years at the same institution. I was in the English department, but so I taught a lot of writing courses and literature courses, but I also founded my campus's film studies minor, and I did a lot of work in film. So I was there for a long time. I never really imagined myself leaving, right? I have tenure, I'm like promoted. And then I think, well, a lot of you'll relate to this and a lot of your listeners too, like the pandemic happened, right? And so like a lot of things started changing on campus. And then I guess it's like, it seems so long ago, but it was really just last year. My school started, you know the story already, I think, started firing tenured professors. And it became this whole legal issue and what have you. My job was safe, but I just felt ethically that I couldn't really stay there any longer, given the climate on campus and what was going on. So I left. I mean, that's basically what happened. I mean, it's easy to say now, but it was a long, it was an arduous decision. It took months for me to decide, but I just did it.
Can you maybe take us into that a little bit of like, what was the final straw? Or because I had a similar experience. I mean, for probably 3 or 4 years, I was miserable. And I just kept telling myself that, if I go to a different school, it'll be better. Or, what if I leave, what am I going to do? I have no idea what else I could do. Nobody's going to hire me, And for me, the agony was like going back and forth of like, I effing hate my job. And I also I'm terrified to leave, which is like the most torturous back and forth you can experience, I think. So how did you make that final decision?
Oh, yeah. So this is complex. So okay, so, the pandemic happened, things started changing. Um, there were a lot of issues surrounding like the failures of shared governance on campus that were very frustrating, but I felt like, well, I'm still in it together with my colleagues. We're kind of fighting this. And I have to say, I loved my job. I wasn't like, there were aspects toward the end where I was miserable, but I love teaching. I love being in the classroom, love my students. And so it was kind of this balance. I was like, okay, I'm willing to put up with this administration bullshit, essentially, because I love these other pieces. But then when the whole thing started happening about firing the tenured professors, the climate on campus really shifted. And it's funny, I've been thinking about this a lot given the current political climate. We don't need to get political on your podcast, but
you
just,
can. Okay. It's
okay.
okay. Whatever you want to talk about.
No, it's astonishing, like the parallels between what happened on my campus and what's happening now, sort of this top-down authority coming in, people being afraid to speak out. And I guess I thought, naively thought that, oh, all of my colleagues are going to band together and we're going to fight the dictator kind of thing. And that just did not happen. And it was very disappointing. And I think that was really what changed things for me, because I felt like, I have many wonderful colleagues I love dearly. I'm still good friends with them. But I was really disappointed by how some people reacted to that. So that was it. That was the final decision, or the final straw. The decision making, oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't even know how I decided. I think it was a lot of reflecting. I don't know. I don't know about you, but like, I want to hear more about how you decided. But for me, I did a lot of journaling, a lot of talking with people, both inside of academia and outside of academia. And it was just this like very long reflection process. And then I had the day I had to decide, I remember my mom was visiting. We were about to go on this trip that I had planned like way before all this stuff started happening. My partner was here. And I just remember I was like, I have to decide right in the next 4 hours or whatever. And I went into my bedroom. I told my mom and my partner, I was like, I'm setting the timer for 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, I am going to decide. And I went in there, I laid on the bed. It was like 2 minutes. And I just got up and I walked out. I was like, I'm leaving. But yeah,
that's funny.
I'm curious about your experience.
So I think I kind of went through a similar like countdown clock or something where my son was he turned a year old in the summer, early in the summer and of 2019, and we had just bought a house the year before. And anybody who's ever owned a house knows that if you only own it for a year, you lose a ridiculous amount of money. And so that was on the plate. And then, but my mother-in-law had lung cancer. And so it was like, and the thought of going back I loved teaching. I just didn't love the plagiarism and the cheating and the, I had a student who came to take her final exam the spring before, and she had a can of something in a koozie. And I was like, she was being super cagey about it. And I was like, she's totally drinking a beer during the final exam, you know? And it was like, I'm just so tired of this crap, I'm just so tired of it. And that summer, I remember going back and forth with my husband a lot about what do we do? And finally, I think I had a moment like that where I said, like, I'm going to decide today, and I called my department chair and I was shaking and I just said, and I remember the phone conversation with her and with the provost who called me later and was trying to talk me out of it. She tried to say, what if you take us a year leave to think about it? And as I was talking to them, it became very clear that even that wouldn't solve the problem. Like if I still had to come back a year from now, we'd still be miserable living where we were living. We'd still be away from family. We'd still like all these problems would still exist. I'd just be putting it off for a year. And that I think the act of actually doing it really solidified my decision of like, okay, this is, clearly this is what I need to do. I'm making the right choice. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, that's funny. So how did you discover editing?
Okay, so I had been doing editing. Well, okay, first I should say, like, we all did editing, right? Unofficially in our positions. And I taught writing. So, like, obviously, I had a lot of experience with developmental editing and copy editing of my students' work. But then I had, like, so I was a formal consultant for Legacy, a journal, since 2016. And so it's essentially like peer reviewing essays that people are submitting, but it's a bit more formal than when you're just asked to peer review. And I took it very seriously. So pretty much anytime I still work for them. Anytime I was assigned an essay, I was doing developmental editing on these pieces, even if we were rejecting them, because I'm now managing editor of early American studies, and I see sometimes, you get these peer reviews and it's just like reject, and there's no helpful criticism or feedback. So I was really invested in giving thorough feedback. So I had that position. And then a couple years before I left my job, I started working as a reader/assistant editor for Conjunctions magazine, which is a creative writing journal. I'm also a creative writer. So I had these kind of like sort of experiences, unpaid experiences with editing, but it ran deep. Like I said, I've been teaching for 16 years, so I had a lot of background there. Also in like writing groups, both creative writing groups and academic writing groups, doing developmental editing. In my academic writing group, these folks have gone on to like publish amazing books with amazing presses. So yeah, I just feel like I had all this background that I needed to find a way to channel into something more formal, which is partly why I signed up for your class.
So you had just done the sort of the unpaid work, it sounds like, before you found the course.
Yep.
Okay. And so then you probably saw a post of mine somewhere on LinkedIn or whatever. And walk us through that process. How did you decide to actually start a business?
Yeah, I might have had one paid. I think I started MDPI, the dread, I should say that, MDPI before our course. It's a wonderful place to work, listeners. No, it's a great place to get experience. It just doesn't pay a lot of money for what you're doing. So yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think a friend of mine had followed you on LinkedIn, and everybody knew like Meg has no job now. Meg needs a job. I'm like telling everybody on Facebook, help me. And I said I was interested in editing, and I think she told me about you, and then I discovered your course, and I was like, this is what I need to do, because I had no idea about, I guess this is like an academic dilemma. Maybe you're just like living in this bubble for so long. And I had like no idea how to put myself out on the job market. I was applying for jobs, not academic jobs, but like, it's so embarrassing to think back on like the resumes I was sending. I mean, you don't send a CV, right? You need a resume. It should be one page. Like I had no clue about any of that. And when I read about your course, I thought, okay, this is going to be a way for me to gain some practical knowledge and skills, right? So both the like doing the editing and finding the jobs, but also just how to put yourself out there and present yourself in the world.
So funny story about horrible resumes. I too applied to many non-academic jobs. I had several interviews, but was not hired by anyone. And somebody actually in the HR department where I applied wrote me back and said, "This resume is too academic. You need to make it less academic." I was just like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know how to make anything less academic. I am an academic. And so, yeah, it's hard out there. But yeah, a lot of lessons learned along the way. Okay, so what, take us into your business today. What kind of editing do you do? How do you get clients? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, that I've been very lucky insofar as I'm not having a problem finding clients. The clients are finding me, I'm finding them. And I've been thinking about why that is. And I think it has to do with the kinds of services I'm offering. So I do obviously do academic editing. That's why I took your class. I was an academic for a long time, but I'm also a creative writer. So I do a full range of kinds of editing, right? Developmental, copy editing. I've also been doing consulting and coaching, which I love. That's maybe like my favorite thing to do. But I do it for both academics and creative writers. So I'm wondering if maybe this is something to do with why I've been successful. I guess there's like a benefit to finding like a niche, but maybe because I have this like wide array of services too, that is also been beneficial. I'm not sure. I still have to like figure this out going forward.
So are you, there's always this constant tension, I think, between like, do I go really niche or do I go broad? And I think people sort of have to, certainly in the beginning, I think it's good to keep yourself a bit broad so you can figure out what you like. And then you can sort of niche down as you realize, oh, I really love doing this work and I really don't want to do that work. But that's really more about your own preferences than the clients, I think. It's just kind of figuring out what brings you joy. But so what are you posting on LinkedIn, or are you blogging or anything like that? How do you have a sense of where people are finding you, or?
I honestly have not done anything like this. So this is like, that's in my like back pocket for when, whatever, like the clients start disappearing or I'm not getting the stream that I'm getting now. I think it's a few things. So one is just having the website. Obviously, like I've had people find me through the website. I'm kind of like, how did this happen? And I don't know if they see that I work at Conjunctions, the literary magazine, or they see that I'm the managing editor for Early American Studies, and then that takes them to my website and they find me there. But the website, has, I think, been huge. Then I've used social media a lot, which was, I think this was something we talked about one week in our class. Like you had said, there are all these groups on Facebook devoted to editing. And I've actually gotten a lot of clients there, just like seeing posts, reaching out to them, which is somewhat astonishing because this, like, somebody posts something like, I'm looking for an editor, and then like 45 people have responded within like the span of 5 minutes. But yeah, I've found folks there. And then the third thing, and I think this is maybe the biggest thing, is I joined the Editorial Freelancers Association, EFA. And there's a job board there, and you get almost daily digests of people looking for someone. And they too, I mean, I think, get lots of responses, but it's just a matter of like, the way you've shaped your email to them, or just something clicking with them, and they want to work with you.
So I want to connect what you said about the website and the social media and even the EFA lists. I think, and this is just my speculation from what I've observed from this process myself, I think that when, like you said, and this happens in the creative writing groups, it happens in the graduate student groups, people will say, help, I need an editor. And like you said, 45 people will comment. And what I've noticed is a lot of people who comment will say, inbox me, or,
Mm-hmm.
email me at racecar37@gmail.com or something like, and then I'll put, or I assume you put your website link there,
Right.
and it's like, well, yeah, they're going to choose you because who's going to email racecar37 when they can email Meg, who has a beautiful photo, beautiful website, it has your EFA member logo. I'm looking at your website right now.
Oh,
But like
okay.
clearly you're a professional with expertise and, they're going to trust you. And
Yeah.
that's what I always tell people when you make the web page as one of the first things that you do, because it helps you figure out what your messaging is and who you want to work with. And I think I took you guys through all those exercises of who's your ideal client and what problem do you
Right.
solve and how do we write the one liner. And so it helps you figure out who you are and what kind of business you want to have. But also, like, it just is that place that people can go, even if it's just one page, they can go there and see, okay, this person is legit. They're not going to scam me.
Right.
They're not going to steal my money, if I have PayPal them or something. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the best first steps somebody can take is to have that page with their background and how they serve people. And it just speaks to the fact that you are a professional and not some random person with a Gmail address.
No, for sure. I mean, it's the comments on those social media. So, I mean, at least half of them, I think, are scams. So, yeah, it's a lot about establishing credibility, establishing trust. The other thing I do, I didn't say this. Usually, when I reach out to someone and I send them my website, I also say that I offer a free 15 to 20-minute consultation. And I think that too has been super helpful in both just like making the connection, but also establishing credibility because then people meet with you, they see, oh, you're a real person. And I think it's good on from my perspective too, right? Because there's always the possibility that you meet up with someone for that consultation and you're like, no, actually, I don't think we're a good fit. That has not happened yet, but I could imagine that happening.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you get better as you gain more experience, you get better at figuring out the red flags for clients. Like there are certainly red flags for editors, like don't hire an
Yeah.
editor who doesn't have a website. But
Right.
also from our perspective, there's red flags like the person is hedging on how much they want to pay you, or
Hmm.
you just kind of get a vibe from them that's like they're really not sure they're committed to this, and I should be careful about going forward or something. Well, that's great to hear that you're getting so much work coming in. What would you say the percentage breakdown is between academic versus like creative writing projects?
It's definitely more creative. It's probably about 70-30, I would say. Um, but that might also be too because I love working with creative writers. So I think I might be more actively pursuing those posts when I see them on EFA or on social media. But yeah, it's definitely like tipping toward the creative.
And is it fiction, like novels or poetry, or what kind of projects or a mix, maybe?
It's a mix. So I've done a couple of novels, which I really love doing. I worked with one client earlier this year on a long prose poem that is incredible, and she's sending that out to magazines now. She's gotten what we call the good rejection from like top tier magazines. These are places where they accept like less than 1% of the submissions they receive. Um, I've done some more unusual things. Like I'm working with a client now who, um, when she was, I think, 94, told her son, um, guess what? I've been writing my whole life and I never told you all. And it turns out she had written like hundreds and hundreds of poems that she's since published, like through a good press, 2 volumes of poetry. And now I'm working with her on her memoir. So it's a mix of like doing editing, but also imagining like where could we send these pieces out. So that's something I like too. Like I love doing the editing. I love doing coaching, but I also like this kind of like consulting, like helping people think about how to get their pieces out into the world.
How rewarding that must be to help
Oh my
this
gosh.
woman, at the end of her life to be able to complete this project and then put it out in the world. That must be fun.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I think when I left academia, I was thinking, how will I ever like come close to that feeling of helping students? Right? I just thought like, okay, that was a thing that was part of my life and it's gone. And I was kind of mourning it because I really loved working with my students, but I'm finding places to do that here, right? And I think that's partly why I love the like actually meeting up with people and helping guide them through the process.
I love that. I felt the same way. I think I had edited for like 4 years and realized this is pretty lonely, And like my husband would come
Mm-hmm.
home from work and I would just like word vomit all over the place, like, blah, 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 talking about my day. And the poor guy is so supportive and just, listens and smiles and nods and asks questions. But I've realized like, I need other adults to talk to, and
Right.
I think the coaching comes in and fills that, not only the need for teaching, which I missed too. I really missed engaging with a class, and in our community, when we have our Zoom meetings, of 10 people or so, it's a class of full of students who all want to be there and who all want to learn, and everyone has done the reading, so it's like the ideal college
Right.
classroom.
Right.
But also just having these connections with other people who we all have something in common. We all have similar backgrounds and interests. And so what does that coaching and consulting look like? Is it always part of the editing? Like you would add on an hour Zoom call that they would pay for? Or do you offer like just coaching, or how is that working out?
Yeah, I mean, so this is something I'm still figuring out. In fact, just yesterday, I had a unique situation where I'm like, oh, I have to figure out how to help this client, because in the past it's been I've already done like a manuscript critique or developmental editing, so I'm familiar with the piece, and then we're meeting to talk about revising it. And I've done that for both academics and creatives. I do have another client who's just building a novel from the ground up, and that's what we're doing coaching. Like, so we're still very early days. She's working on her outline, her beat sheet, as they call it, and thinking through different scenes that she's going to write. So that's like a different one. And then now I have a client who has a manuscript and just wants to meet for coaching. So that's something I have to figure out, like how that's going to work practically. But I guess the answer to your question is it's a wide array. Like some people already have a finished product, want to revise it. Some people have nothing. Some people are maybe kind of like in between.
Very cool. I love the flexibility of it all, that as you
Yeah.
are 6 or 8 months into, this business, you're able to realize like, oh, I really love this, or, oh, maybe I'll add on this service, or I don't like that, so I'm not going to take those anymore, and you really can go in any direction that you want, any ideas that you come up with. If you want to develop a workshop or a course or something down the road, you can do that as well. So if there's anybody out there who is a new editor and thinking about getting into this business, what do you think are one or two pieces of advice that what would you, like looking back, in hindsight, what would you say to somebody or to your past self that would help them along in this process of building their business?
Well, number one is obviously take your class. Take Paulina's class. No, really. I mean, I've been hyping it up to everybody because I know I could not have done this if I hadn't taken the class. So that's number one. Number two, I made a joke about MDPI earlier, but I do think it's valuable to apply for some of these positions where you're primarily doing copy editing, because you're going to get a lot of experience. It also is kind of like what we've been talking about, like kind of figuring out what you like. I think through that, I figured out I'm fine with copy editing. I think I'm good at it, but I don't love it, right? It's not the thing where I'm like, I wake up in the morning and I want to copy edit. I know some people are like that. But I would say taking like these smaller jobs with freelance jobs with MDPI. I know a lot of your students have done eContent Pro. Obviously, I did that too, just to kind of get some experience. It's also good because then you can put it on your resume. Yeah, I would say those are the two biggest things, because you just have to start doing it. And then I guess maybe for people who haven't left academia yet, but you're thinking about it, well, you could do those two things. But like we were saying before, I think building a website is good too, because you never know. Someone might reach out to you and say, hey, could you I have this manuscript, could you do a developmental edit? And again, you're getting some experience in figuring out what you like.
And you can sort of start any of those things, even if you're still teaching, I think, right? Because it doesn't require a ton of extra time, maybe 5 hours a week or something to copy edit an article, and just kind of dip your toes in the water and see if you like it before, if you feel like you need that confirmation before you leave academia completely.
Right.
Great. So if anybody would like to work with you and get on your schedule for the future, because your schedule is full right now, I know, but
it is very full.
But if they would like to explore working with you at some point in the future, how can they get in touch with you?
So they can go to my website, which is www.megtoth.com. And you'll see an editing tab there for my business, which is Birchwood Editing. There's a contact form. I think I even just have my email on there too, which is toth.meg@gmail.com. I don't mind sharing that. So yeah, I'm here and I want to hear from you.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Meg, for sharing all this helpful information.
Thank you so much, Paulina, for having me, and also just for your course. Really, I'm so grateful for it.
Well, I really feel lucky to have met you and to have you be part of the community. So it goes both ways.
Thanks.
If you're unhappy in academia and you think you might be a good editor or writing coach, check out my course, Becoming an Academic Editor. This digital course is paired with a 12-week group coaching program to support you through your decision to leave academia or not, and to start building a profitable and rewarding academic editing business. Learn more by going to acadiaediting.com/become an editor. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.